What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. So, at least from my perspective, whenever I read articles or when I do look at ESPN or Fox Sports, I get the impression that this championship run or potential championship run by the Brooklyn Nets is, very critical to Durant's um, legacy, and it is. But to me, out of the three guys, it's the most critical and most crucial to James Harden because even if you want to sort of take some of the glimmer off of Durant's championships because of the team that he won them on, you know, he still won championships. People seem to forget that Kyrie Irving is an NBA champion. Okay, he hit the biggest shot in the history of the franchise, Cleveland. Okay, so people tend to sometimes like forget these things. James Harden has never won a championship. And he came back last night. We count the bench. I believe he had 18 points, and I believe it was 11 assists. Make sure that's correct. Yeah, 18 points and 11 assists. I think he played something like 26, 28 minutes. And like I said, the first time he played coming off the bench since the 2011-2012 season when he was with the old Oklahoma City Thunder. I think it was last year he was there before he left in free agency to become a player for the Houston Rockets. Um, he had missed more than a month due to a hamstring injury. And, the thing about James Harden is he has such a feel for the game, and his game is not necessarily predicated on athleticism, so that it's like he can just go right into a game. Like this guy can literally come from the Cheesecake Factory and go right in the game and be impactful, and then just slowly, lose the weight and get back into better shape and be prime James Harden. It's kind of amazing. A lot of guys they gotta kind of work themselves back into being what they were, but not James Harden. He said that the game comes easy to him. He doesn't try to overextend himself. He said that he doesn't try to do things that he knows that aren't his bread and butter, and he has a feel for his team and his teammates. And it shows because, in my opinion, now you can't give it to him now. He's only played in 43 games, and you can't get the MVP to somebody who's missed half the season. Although I do believe it's overstated that it has to be 72 games or more for the MVP award to be awarded because Bill Walton won the MVP award in 1978 while only playing 58 games for Portland. So there has been a precedent for guys to win the MVP when not playing, you know, the entire season. But to me, before he got hurt, James Harden was the league MVP. Okay, um, so he's a hell of a player. I get accused a lot of times of not giving James Harden his due. What it is with me, I think people don't seem to quite understand it. And I'm not saying that I don't have my flaws, but I tend to go against what I see as being overstated in the media. When you have guys say that you're the greatest scorer ever, or you're the greatest this or that ever, then I expect, as anybody else should expect, greatness consistently throughout. You can't put up all these great regular season numbers, but then in the playoffs, falter every year. You can't do that, especially in this era, and especially being a perimeter guy. We always have the ball in your hands. A center can sometimes make the excuse, I'm not getting the ball. Okay. But with James Harden, you always have the ball in your hand. And, so that's not an excuse. So, when you are having these horrible playoff performances year in and year out, having these terrible series performances, I'm sorry, but it impacts, it negates what you're doing during the regular season. So, in my opinion, this playoff run, even though they're supposed to win the championship, if they win the championship, uh, this would be a bit of a boost for James Harden. I mean, look, the guy already has 3 scoring titles. He's led the NBA in assists. He's one of only 7 players to lead the NBA in both scoring and assists in their career. He has over 22,000 points. He's only 31 years old. Uh, so he's really going to start going up in the annals of history as far as shooting guards is concerned. Now, right now, I have James Harden on the precipice of being a top 10 all time shooting guard. Some of these guys in the media, when they say someone's top 5, they don't even make, like, this would piss me off with some people when they make their top 10 list. They don't say exactly when their guy cracked the top 10. Right? They'll say, well, look, Curry, to me, he's top 2 all time point guards. But when did the conversation start between, Curry and say somebody like Lenny Wilkins or somebody like between him and Gary Payton as far as ranking? When did that conversation happen? How did he just go from being, maybe a top 15 all time point guard just straight to number 2? When did that conversation happen? So, in my opinion, if James Harden wins the championship this year with the Brooklyn Nets, it is a super team. So you can't get the same type of love, say, had he won it at Houston when he was the man himself. But it adds to his legacy. So if he does win a championship, like right now, as far as my top 5 shooting guards, I have it Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Jerry West, Dwayne Wade, and Clyde Drexler. Then I think afterward, I believe I think I have it Allen Iverson, George Gervin, who else? I think Sam Jones. No. I think it's Clay Thompson, who I might have pushed up there too early. But I think I have Clay somewhere in that range. I had it written down before and memorized, but I kind of forgotten some of those guys. But I think it's Clay. It might be Ray Allen, number 10, and I think Sam Jones is in there. He's somewhere in that range. I'm a little fuzzy with the 8, 9, and 10, right? But if James Harden wins a championship this year, I mean, I probably would have to have him crack the top 10. He's to me, a more dominant player than Ray Allen. Not a better shooter, but he's more dominant than Ray Allen. Better than Ray Allen overall. Sam Jones was a great player, a great clutch player, but he was the beneficiary of being on those super duper hooper duper gooper, Celtics teams. Um, yeah, so I would probably have him in my top 10 after this year. You know what I'm saying? So people can stop bugging me about, me hating on James Harden. It's not that I'm hating on James Harden. It's that I'm not one of these guys who usually reward excellence over a 2 or 3 year span. You have to do it consistently night in and night out over a period of time. You know what I'm saying? That's why it takes me longer to give guys uh, that type of ranking. I reward longevity, you know. Now that James Harden is really starting to put up and accumulate numbers, historically, now I feel more comfortable putting him higher. Whereas, 7, 8 years ago, no. Or even 6 years ago with Curry when he hadn't quite gotten there yet. Now, sometime next year, Steph Curry should crack 20,000 career points. To me, that 20,000 point plateau is very important when you're an all time great scorer. There's a lot of great scorers who unfortunately were unable to crack that 20,000 point barrier because of injuries. One of them that comes to mind is Bernard King. Another one is Pete Maravich. He didn't come anywhere near 20,000 points because of injuries that shortened his career. So that 20,000 point barrier means a lot. It means you were able to put up points and be a productive offensive player for a long period of time. That's why I reward longevity. So to end this video, James Harden is a phenomenal player. Yeah, I've criticized him before for being a ball hog and shooting too much. You know what I'm saying? I didn't really particularly care for his game in Houston when he was, holding the ball and the offense was sometimes stagnant. And, yeah, he put up a lot of points some nights against some of the worst teams. But at the end of the day, it was stat padding. If you're going to say Russell Westbrook was stat padding, Harden was seriously stat padding in some of those games. You know what I'm saying? And even though he uh, claims that he's a selfless player, watching him in Houston seems to belie that uh, that notion because I've seen him wince and disappointment when Dan Twain would take him out of games, and he's had 60 points in the third quarter against a team that they're up by 40 against, and he wants to get 80, he wants to get 70, he wants to get a particular point total that's in his head. So look, at the end of the day, he has to get it done. We saw Kobe Bryant do this, put up phenomenal offensive numbers. Now, he already had championships, but he had to prove himself again because people still saw him in Shaq's shadow. Michael Jordan in the 80s, very early 90s, was putting up phenomenal numbers, but he couldn't get past the Detroit Pistons. So ultimately, he had to prove that he could be a championship caliber player. We've always seen this, you know what I'm saying? This isn't something that's new. Um, Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt was putting up phenomenal numbers, but he just didn't play on great teams. When he finally played on a great team, they were two of the greatest teams we've ever seen, the 67 76ers and the 72 Lakers. But that's all I got to say, man. Much respect to James Harden. Tell me what you guys think.